Hello and welcome to Take 6. I'm streaming executive producer Thomas Mates, filling in for Julie Broughton. She's out on a shoot today, but she'll be back with us tomorrow. Overnight, we had port workers from across the country go on strike, and this is going to have a big impact on our economy across the country and here in Central Florida, including small businesses. Today, News 6 reporter Emily McLeod is out talking to these small businesses as well as experts about what this is going to mean for all of us here in Central Florida. She joins us right now. Emily, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. Yeah, kind of a big story breaking overnight, especially one that impacts or could impact our local economy, many of our favorite local businesses here, depending on where you shop. So we had the International Longshoremen's Association go on strike last night. That's about 45,000 union workers all up and
Wow.
down the East Coast, all the way over to Brownsville, Texas, all the way up the coast against the U.S. Maritime Alliance. So basically, they're asking for better pay. And these workers are also concerned about automation at these ports. So those are the big issues that we're looking at here as far as this strike goes. Now, I went down to Park Avenue today and I spoke to Siegel's. Great store, a lot of really great gift items and clothing items, both men and women's items. And they say they have most of their items that they're going to be selling during the Christmas season. So they say they're good there as far as impacts for the holiday season. They also told us, if you don't have your Christmas merchandise in now, you're probably not going to get it. A lot of times these retailers, they'll get their Christmas merchandise in July, August, September. So it's in really early. Now, whether or not that'll be directly related to this strike or if it's just because the order got put in late, it wasn't made quite clear, but they said if you pretty much don't have it now, you might not be able to get it. But they're kind of just in this holding pattern of waiting and seeing. How much of an impact is this going to have? How long is this actually going to last? And they told us they might not see impacts until the first quarter of the new year. So it depends on the business. This is just one store that we spoke to in Winter Park. But right now they say they're good. They're ready for the holiday season. But they say if they do see impacts, they might not anticipate it until the first quarter of the new year. So that was from them. But we also spoke to UCF's director of the Institute of Economic Forecast, Dr. Sean Snaith, and he is very knowledgeable on a lot of economic topics. And he kind of has the same sentiment, this wait and see pattern. Depends on how long this strike goes to really get a full picture of what these impacts could be. He says he did bring up an interesting comparison to the supply chain issues that we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic. And he said this is a little bit different than what we saw with that, because with COVID, all of manufacturing shut down. Everything shut down. There wasn't anything happening. In this case, we still have manufacturers putting things together, making things, getting our meat, getting our vegetables, making clothes. But we just, right now, the port workers are on strike. So therefore, there's no way to get those goods from the port to the retailers that need them. So again, kind of a similar sentiment. We're just going to wait and see what happens with this. Dr. Snaith said, right now, don't panic. So there's no need to go out and panic buy any products right now. But he said, don't panic. We're just going to kind of wait and see where this goes in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and you were saying earlier today when we were first talking out the story before you went out and started gathering, that this is not affecting all sectors equally. For instance, here in Florida, you were saying that it's Jacksonville and Miami are the two big ports, and they bring in different items. So people might be impacted at different times, depending on what it is there is being brought in.
Yeah, exactly. I think, for example, Miami, some of their top imports include woven clothing like tank tops and t-shirts and meats and fruits and vegetables, versus another port like up in Maryland, they really focus on bringing in auto parts to make cars. So it just kind of depends on where you are. Exactly like you said, depends on what you might be shopping for. And it depends on how long this could actually go. If it's wrapped up, like Dr. Snaith said, he said if it's wrapped up by next week, it might not be an issue. But if we're looking at a more long-term stoppage, then that's when it becomes a bigger issue for consumers.
Yeah, and that could have some compounding issues, moving forward, just as as things are not coming off of boats, they end up getting piled up, and then that doesn't free up storage containers. And that was something we were seeing a bit during the pandemic, just insofar as, the ports getting clogged up, and that at a certain point they had to call in some instances, National Guard members to help just clear the ports, get the stuff out there. Obviously, we're day one into this. We're not at that point yet, but it is certainly something that has people concerned.
Yeah, definitely something consumers want to pay attention to. You want to be updated on the situation, but as of right now, Dr. Snaith said, let's not panic quite yet. Let's wait and see how long this goes on for.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if they can reach a deal here, hopefully soon.
Yeah, and again, as you said, we won't see those immediate impacts. This might be something that might not crop up for months, even. As you said, people get their orders in well in advance, but it only takes, any stoppage is going to put delays into it. It's like a traffic jam. As soon as one person slows down, everything behind it slows down.
And as far as restocking product, even as we get later into the year when more people are spending more money buying Christmas presents and things like that, there might be an issue running into getting items restocked that people might already have now, but later on down the road. So it all depends, It just really depends on how long this goes on for. And I think then once we see how long it starts to go on for, then we'll get a clearer picture of what these impacts could really be.
Yeah, and here locally, this could be something of a piece with your story that you did yesterday with, labor costs are going up, and now potentially good costs might go up as supply goes down. So this is definitely something that, long term we could start seeing some of those effects. But again, it's more of a wait and see at this point.
Yeah, the local businesses I spoke to yesterday about the Florida's minimum wage going up, they say they try to not pass it on to the consumer, but at a certain point, what can they do? So that's an issue a lot of our small businesses are facing and dealing with, is keeping up with the cost of goods rising on their end of things, but also trying to keep it at a fair price point for their customers so that people continue to shop or dine with them.
Absolutely. And so again, we want to stress, as the expert says, as Sean Snaith says, don't panic, don't start hoarding. This is not please. Pandemic part 2, certainly. I certainly don't want to go hunting for toilet paper or any other goods.
No, I don't think any of us want to do that.
Yeah, no, not again. But it is definitely something that everyone needs to pay attention to. I know previously when the rail labor union had a strike, or was on the verge of a strike, the federal government ended up stepping in for that. Remains to be seen if that could happen here, but I imagine that it's still something that is being considered if this starts to drag on, especially as we get closer to those holidays.
Well, and that's what Dr. Snaith touched on that too. He said, he would think it would be of the current administration's interest to maybe step in if they can't come to an agreement at the bargaining table, to hopefully kind of facilitate that to get it going. So exactly like you said. Yeah,
certainly. And we know that the last time that happened, they were still working behind the scenes to try and make a fair deal for the labor unions, as President Biden has, in the past shown deference towards labor unions. He was on the picket line with them. So it'll be interesting to see, although he definitely took a knock when he forced the rail unions to get back to work. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what moves he might make now and how that will impact all of us.
Yeah, all of that remains to be seen.
Yeah. All right. Well, Emily, thank you so much. I know you're working solo today, so I will let you get back to it. I appreciate all of your time, though. Thank you so much.
Of course, absolutely.
All right. Thank you all for joining us, and we will take a quick break. When we get back, we'll be talking about the tropics and today's weather with News 6 meteorologist Samara Kokinos, Central Florida's only rock and roll meteorologist. That'll be coming up in about 2 minutes. Welcome back to Take Six. If you're just joining us, I'm streaming executive producer Thomas Mates. I'm in for Julie Broughton today. She'll be joining us tomorrow. She is on assignment today. Right now, we are going to turn to the weather. Everyone is paying attention to what is going on in the Gulf. I will spoil our next segment a little bit by saying, don't panic. There's nothing to panic about yet. There's nothing there yet. We're still waiting to find out what exactly is going to happen. But for someone with a little more authority on the subject, we are joined by News 6 pinpoint weather meteorologist Samara Kokinas. Samara, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And I loved your spoiler.
Yes.
Because I'm all for the whole no hype thing because, I don't, much like what's happening at the port,
Yes.
with weather, we don't want you to be, fearful, especially over something that is still out there that hasn't got its
Exactly.
act together.
Depending
But I
on what
have to
model you're looking
say,
at, it could be anything from
yeah.
something to nothing.
And long range models, I was telling, some friends that long range models will switch so much. They
Mhm.
change up so much because the environment is so fluid, that you'll get a run that'll look like something crazy, and then the next run will be a little bit different or completely different. So
Mhm.
it's kind of important to keep that in mind that with such a fluid atmosphere and over a long period of time, so many things can happen in that time frame that, as we get a better grip on what models are doing,
Mhm.
that's where we're able to hone in on those details. So
Yeah, this morning,
um,
Candace, Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos, I should say,
yeah,
give her the full title.
you're the title.
She was saying that watching this system is going to be like watching paint dry. Everyone wants to know what's going to
Yeah,
happen, but it's going to take time to develop. And again, it
right.
could be something, it could be nothing. Uh,
Right.
mhm,
It's you're right. It is like watching paint dry. But that's weather sometimes,
mhm.
because there's just sometimes where we're just like, all right, so what are we doing here? And then the system just kind of sits there and you're like, okay, Mother Nature, thank you for that, or for humbling us a little bit,
Yeah, she doesn't work on our
so
timeline.
yeah, exactly. So when we look at this system, so this area of low pressure, right?
Mhm.
um, you'll notice that over time, that little highlighted orange area, not the two red areas over in the Eastern Pacific off of Guatemala and Mexico, that's something completely different, okay? But that system in the orange is, or the area in orange, I should say, is an area that we'll be watching. So, super broad area of rotation right now really doesn't have its act together, so to speak. But, you know, the National Hurricane Center has highlighted a 10% chance over the next 2 days and a 40% chance over the next 7 days for some gradual potential development. Um, that means the environment that it's going to be moving into, whether it's, the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula going into the Gulf of Mexico or in the Gulf of Mexico by itself or in the Southwestern Caribbean, is going to be a little bit more favorable for some development. So again, when we're talking tropical development, it's one of those things where you need all the necessary ingredients to kind of come together, to kind of make things happen, right? So they're not going to completely rule out by the end of the week going into the weekend that we could possibly see a tropical depression develop. Now, again, models, we say it a lot, models are used for guidance. They are not, how is people say, Bible, so to speak, right? It's not something set in stone. These are guidance as to what could possibly happen in our atmosphere. So that's what we're looking at as far as the setup is concerned. But the thing is, regardless of any type of formation, what we're looking at here is definitely going to be a rainmaker for us, and everybody's like, oh, that's what a hurricane is, it's rain and wind. And, yeah, I get it, but it comes with a little bit more of a punch when it's actually a hurricane or a major hurricane. Of course, that's when those conditions kind of change a little bit. So the streaming of the moisture, you're going to notice, really kicks up by the end of the week going into the weekend, and especially for the start of next week. So it's something where we could, if it does, start to form, maybe even see some tropical storm development. But again, that's I'm more focused on the actual rain event for us here,
Mhm.
despite whether we have formation or not. So taking a look at the rest of the tropics, though. You see above Kirk, that area, that's the remnants of Joyce. She's on her way out, right? She's over the open Atlantic. Same thing with Kirk. Kirk is going to be a fish storm not anticipated to impact land or anything like that, or especially Central Florida for that matter. So that's all the good news. But then you notice that highlighted red area, that's another wave that has about a 90% chance of taking on tropical development, or excuse me, 80% over the next 2 days, 90% over the next 7 days of taking on some tropical development as it moves westward through the eastern tropical Atlantic and into the central tropical Atlantic. So we all know that that's the zone that is more conducive for development. So if this one does develop, the next name on the list would be Leslie. And then after that would be Milton. So looking at these two areas, we're not ones to say, hey, this one's going to get named before the other one, but the other one's looking a little bit more favorable for the one in the Caribbean. So at this point, it's kind of like a watching game as to who's going to get the name Leslie and who's going to get the name, or if we get the name Milton out of one of these two, it could be a different one. I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen, Thomas. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, I've seen all of a sudden a wave just burst off of the African coast and get a name before other ones that have already been progressively building. So it's kind of wild.
Well, I certainly hope we don't get hit by a Milton. I feel like that would be a little embarrassing. Milton is such a such a nerdy pencil neck kind of name.
Yeah. There's
I'm sorry to any
all
Miltons
kinds
who
of
might be
names.
watching.
No, I have a Milton in my family.
Oh.
You're right. So when we look at the potential rainfall forecast for the next 7 days, right? Again, this is model guidance. It is not solidified in stone, right? But we are anticipating, with the increasing tropical moisture in the forecast, that's happening. We'll get more scattered downpours. And we know here in Central Florida that those downpours can bring, some really heavy rain in one spot and not in the next. But when you start to get more scattered like activity, you're talking about, from isolated 1 or 2 or 3 storms to more scattered or numerous. And that's where you see the coverage go up. That's where we could see rainfall accumulations really kind of add up over the next 7 days. So anywhere but like 2 to 4 inches. And you see those red bullseyes. Those are those isolated areas that get hit repetitively, or they get those storms that'll move over and move really, really slow, just really throwing buckets of rain down in one particular area where, and it's not near an observation point, and then our observation points will get hit with some really heavy rain. So, this is just, again, this is a model guidance. We could see more than that. For today, though, I don't think that we're really going to see, I think we're going to see some rain, which I'll show you in a second. But again, the amount of heavy rain headed our way is going to be more substantial this weekend going into next week compared to today. So right now, what we're seeing here are temperatures, right? Mid to upper 80s, low 90s. But guess what? Doesn't feel that way. Of course not, right? We're building up tropical humidity. The tropical air, I have been trying to manifest a little bit of fall in my life, and it hasn't been happening with the weather. It still feels like summer part 3 at this point, or
Last
autumn.
night after sundown, I walked outside and it was like take your breath away muggy. It was like stepping into a wet wool sweater.
Well, that's what it's like in the morning. If people get up early to run because they're like, oh, it's cooler, but it is so gross. Like the amount of humidity in the air first thing in the morning is just like, ugh, it's air you can wear is what we like to call it. So we'll see these numbers in the afternoon go up a little bit more before the rain arrives to kind of cool things down, or steam them right back up, depending on if the sunshine comes right back out after a passing thunderstorm, right? But anywhere between 102 to 107 today. So it's very much like a summer day in the beginning of September. But when we're talking about the rain potential, right now we're seeing a few isolated showers, 1 or 2, 3, maybe 4 over the Osceola County area, just a lot of that activity kind of to the east and northeast of the turnpike tonight, or this tonight. Listen to me, tonight. I work nights, guys. And then a few isolated showers along the I-4 corridor. But as we roll ahead in the clouds and rain forecast, what's happening is we're getting kind of a surge of moisture from the south. So you're going to notice that a lot of the activity creeps in from the south throughout the day. So by 4 and 5 o'clock, areas like southern Osceola, southern Brevard, maybe even southernmost Lake and Sumter counties will start to see those clouds rolling in. You'll start to see the rain falling. And by 5 o'clock, we could have some pockets of heavy rain along the turnpike or even the 528 for your commute home on the east side of Orlando. And possibly, quite frankly, like near the I-75 corridor as well in Sumter County. But as it progresses, and we're talking about getting into that 7 and 8 o'clock hour, notice how they all kind of come together. So we have a decent amount of onshore flow kind of pumping in some of that moisture in addition to the moisture that's gradually building in from the south. And that's where we're going to see, some outflow boundary storms kind of take place, and we'll definitely see them kind of fire up a little bit and producing some heavy rain at times from, I would say, I-4 back to the east. Now, notice there's still some activity back to the west, so we can't say, hey, you guys are going to be dry after about 7 o'clock tonight. That's not going to be the case. The good news is though, once the sun sets, we start to lose that daytime heating. It doesn't mean that we still don't have enough moisture to support a few downpours, but it looks like the overall activity begins to taper off and kind of move offshore before 11 o'clock, maybe a few lingering showers behind that. Or through at least maybe midnight. So when we look at the 7-day forecast, you'll notice that we have rain chances up at 70% today. So a little bit more active in terms of scattered showers and a few thunderstorms are possible. We're not looking at anything potentially severe. We're in that general thunderstorm category, as like we like to call it, where we see the rain. We'll have some thunder, have some lightning, probably even some strong wind gusts up near 40 miles per hour, right? But that trend stays unsettled between about 50 and 60% all the way through Saturday, and then notice Sunday and Monday go right back up. So that gives you a really good indicator that, that tropical moisture is going to really surge in, and it's going to be a little bit more cloudy. The clouds and the rain will definitely keep temperatures a little bit cooler, and that's why we're seeing those temperatures in the mid to upper 80s for the last portion of that forecast. But there's also, there is a weak front coming through, but don't get excited.
Yeah.
I mean, all it's really going to do is shift that wind out of the north. Maybe bring it down the humidity a little bit briefly.
I'll take anything, honestly.
At this point, yeah, right.
That 83 sounds great right now.
It sounds fantastic, but it's going to be because of more so clouds, and it's still going, when that tropical moisture really surges in, it's still going to feel muggy and humid outside. So I don't want you thinking, oh, it's behind a front, it's going to be, a little bit cooler. It's going to feel cooler. It is, but it's still going to have that, that air you can wear outside.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a real true fall. Well, with that, fall doesn't really happen until like a Thursday.
Yeah.
And it comes on a Thursday, maybe for a week.
End of December, start of January, maybe.
And then we get maybe a second summer, or a fourth summer at that point. But so that's pretty much the scenario. I wish that I could really give everyone the answers that they're wanting to hear. In terms of, this is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to be. The global models have just been disagreeing. They're starting to come together a little bit better now, but when we can't give you a solidified answer of we're going to see a formation, we could tell you the likelihood of it. I wish I could give you a solidified answer, and it just really it's one of those things about being a meteorologist that kind of still bothers me when I can't give people a definitive answer. But that's part of the science.
Exactly.
It's weather. So
and that's science in real time. Like, you have the hypothesis, you put out, you get the data, you test it, and then either it comes back correct or incorrect, and that's just how it is. And I know people just aren't satisfied with that answer. It's it's like, see what happens.
It's frustrating. And I understand everybody wants to prepare, or they want to plan. People have plans this weekend. I know it's homecoming weekend for a lot of people on Friday night, so it doesn't look like a complete washout, but there's going to be some rain around. So there's that.
It'll be soggy at least.
Right. And then, there are people planning trips. to go to South Florida or to go to North Florida, or whatever the case is, for like a fall little the getaway or whatever. And I know it impacts your plans. And once we do get a more definitive thing on whether or not it's going to form or not, of course we're going to give you the information. We don't withhold that information by any means. But the overall setup for now is it's going to rain.
Yeah. As soon as we know more, we will tell you. We all want to know just as much as you do. We want to be able to get prepared and, know if we have to cancel our plans as well. We're also people. So we totally get it. But we're not going to give you more than what we have.
Right. And we need to know if we're going to be living here, right, Thomas?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I
bring the air mattress?
Yeah, I did a 15-hour shift on Thursday. I'm not looking forward to doing that again, but if we have to, we will be here.
Of course. So, we get it. We understand. We are human too. I promise.
All right. Well, Samara, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm sure our viewers appreciate it, even if it's a less than definitive answer, but it is the answer that we have.
That's what we got.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Problem.
All right. And thank you all so much for joining us here on Take 6. We'll be back tomorrow at 12:30, I believe, with meteorologist and anchor Julie Broughton. She'll be with us again. In the meantime, make sure you tune in at 4 o'clock. We will have updates on Emily's stories, updates on the tropics and the weather, and everything you need to know to go through the rest of your day. That's starting at 4 o'clock tonight. And, of course, you can find the latest anytime on clickorlando.com and on our News 6 YouTube page. It's all there. And, of course, right here on News 6 Plus. Thank you again for watching. I hope that you all have a pleasant day.